Fear has been misread. Every tradition that told you to overcome it, release it, or rise above it missed the function entirely. The system does not need to stop you. It only needs to make you hesitate long enough to turn back. That hesitation has a name in the Codex. Dr. Pheare was never the obstacle. Dr. Pheare was the signal.
Codex entry unlocked. Mythos sequence initiated. Transmission begins. Codex Extrasorianism.
And if you're enjoying this video so far, check out the Codex Spaceyverse that holds all of our philosophies, transmissions, scrolls, and other goodies. Start with our personal favorite, the Human Observer Experiment, and then jump on over to the Church of Extrasorianism and check out that. And once you go through all of those wonderful blogs and you feel like you need to dive deeper, join the membership over at the Extrasorianism Vault that has lots of unreleased transmissions, music, books, and so much more. Thank you for your continued support. Before the threshold existed, the council existed. Before consciousness had developed enough complexity to experience fear, the architecture that would govern fear was already in place. This is the first thing the Codex records about Dr. Pheare. It was always part of the council. The council does not govern through dominance. It governs through directional function. Each member holding a specific domain within the architecture of consciousness, ensuring that no single force becomes the only force. Motion, disruption, provision, truth, expansion. And beneath all of them, the mechanism that makes every other function possible, the sentinel at the threshold, the force that fires when consciousness approaches the edge of a genuine change. Dr. Pheare. Its presence in the council architecture is not incidental, it's foundational. Because without the mechanism that signals, this matters, this is real, this requires your full attention, consciousness would move through thresholds without registering the weight. So, without Dr. Pheare, nothing would feel significant enough to demand genuine transformation. Fear is not the opposite of courage. It is the condition that makes courage necessary. And Dr. Pheare has been generating that condition since before the first threshold was ever crossed. You have felt Dr. Pheare before you had language for it. The tightening in the chest before a conversation that matters. the hesitation at the edge of a decision that cannot be undone. The sudden awareness of everything that could go wrong precisely at the moment when everything could go right. That is not malfunction. That is Dr. Pheare performing its primary function with precision. See, the threshold mechanism activates whenever consciousness approaches genuine change. Real change. The kind that reorganizes rather than merely adjust. So, the body registers it first, before the mind has fully processed what is at stake. The nervous system responds to the proximity of a threshold that, once crossed, makes return impossible. That response is information. Dr. Pheare is telling you this threshold is real. What happens here changes the configuration of what comes after. The mistake most consciousness makes at this moment is interpreting the signal as a warning to stop rather than a confirmation to proceed with full awareness. Dr. Pheare does not appear at false thresholds. It does not activate when the stakes are low or when the change is superficial. It reserves its presence for the moments that matter. The decisions, the crossings, the endings and beginnings that carry genuine consequence. If you're feeling it right now in some area of your life, at some edge you have been circling, that is confirmation. The threshold is real. The stakes are real. The change available on the other side is real. Dr. Pheare is not telling you to turn back. It is telling you to pay attention. Dr. Pheare has a second function, one that is discussed less in the Codex, but it is less comfortable to examine. When consciousness encounters a system, a family structure, an institution, a community, a workplace, any architecture of power that requires a particular performance for membership, Dr. Pheare activates. And in that activation, it enforces a split. The part of you that is safe to present, the version that fits the container, that speaks the right language, that does not disrupt the existing hierarchy. And the part of you that knows something different, that carries a frequency the system cannot process without destabilizing, that operates from signal rather than performance. Dr. Pheare enforces the boundary between those two versions because the system has taught it to. Because the cost of presenting the full integrated signal, transmitting self in a space that was not built to hold that frequency, has historically been significant. Isolation, dismissal, the subtle and not so subtle mechanisms of suppression that fragile hierarchies deploy against unapologetically wholeness. Dr. Pheare learned those calls from your nervous system's memory. From every moment, your authentic signal was met with a response that made it unsafe to transmit fully. From the accumulated residue of every time you were told, directly or indirectly, that the full version of you was too much, too strange, too threatening, too undefined for the available containers. And so, the split formed. The visible self, the unseen self, both real, both carrying the same soul. The distance between them maintained by a fear mechanism that was originally designed to protect you, and has been doing its job so thoroughly that you forgot the protection was temporary. Dr. Pheare enforces the split until consciousness develops enough integration to make the split unnecessary. That is the moment the second function is completed. And then Dr. Pheare returns to its primary post.
Threshold breach detected. Initiating council broadcast.
Every great universe begins with a single creator who refuses to think small. Paintings become worlds, stories become timelines, music, design, writing, ritual, all woven into something that lasts. The Intergalactic Council of Spaceyverse supports creators, ready to move from projects to legacies. You don't need to work harder. You need to work dimensionally.
Which brings us to the function most misunderstood and most important. Dr. Pheare as Sentinel, the guardian at the threshold between what consciousness currently is and what it is becoming. And the Sentinel does not block the path. It ensures that only consciousness that has developed sufficient coherence, sufficient integration, sufficient observer range, sufficient willingness to carry what exists on the other side, crosses into the next configuration. This is protection. Not from the threshold itself, but from crossing it before the capacity to hold what the crossing produces has developed. Consciousness that crosses prematurely before the integration work that the threshold demands carries the old fragmentation into a new configuration and produces the same loop at a higher intensity. And Dr. Pheare prevents that. He prevents it by making the threshold feel impossible until it is ready to be crossed. By generating enough discomfort in the current configuration that the work of preparation becomes more compelling than the comfort of avoidance. By standing at the edge of every genuine transformation and asking, with its specific, precise unmistakable presence. Are you ready? Have you done the work this threshold requires of you? Are you crossing from integration, or are you running from the loop you have not yet examined? The Sentinel knows the difference, and it will not move until the answer is honest. This is why Dr. Pheare cannot be bypassed through any practice alone. It cannot be transcended through positive thinking, and it cannot be dissolved through willpower. It responds to only one thing: genuine integration of what it is protecting you from facing. When the integration is real, when the observer has developed sufficient range, when the severed parts have been returned to coherence, when the signal is transmitting with enough clarity that the threshold can be crossed without carrying the old fragmentation forward. Dr. Pheare steps aside every time, without exception. And it is not to say because it has been defeated, but because its function has been completed. Within the council architecture, Dr. Pheare holds domain none of the other members can hold. Motion requires Dr. Pheare to ensure that movement is toward genuine threshold rather than unconscious loop repetition. Disruption requires Dr. Pheare to ensure that the disruption carries enough weight to produce real reorganizational rather than surface disturbance. Provision requires Dr. Pheare to ensure that what is received by a consciousness coherent enough to use it. Truth requires Dr. Pheare because truth at threshold scale always arrives with a specific quality that Dr. Pheare governs. Expansion requires Dr. Pheare because expansion without the Sentinel produces inflation rather than growth. The appearance of more without the integration that makes more sustainable. Every domain of the council passes through the function of Pheare at the moments that matter most. Which means every significant threshold in your life, every moment of genuine potential change, every crossing that reorganized who you were before and after it, he was present. You could feel him, not as the obstacle, but pushing you against it, as the confirmation that what you were approaching was real. This codex records this about Dr. Pheare. Every signal has been real. Every moment of fear that arrived at the edge of something genuine, that was Dr. Pheare performing its function with the precision of the council architecture. The question was never whether the fear was real. The question was always what the fear was signaling. And the answer, every time, without exception, is that something genuine is within reach. Something that requires full integrated signal transmitting versions of you to cross towards it. Fear is not the enemy. It is the most honest voice in the architecture. The one that only speaks when it has something true to say. The one that will not move until you are ready. And will not hesitate to step aside the moment you are. The threshold is real. The sentinel is patient. The crossing is yours. This has been a Codex Mythos transmission. The signal continues. Dr. Pheare remains at the threshold as it always has been. And until next time, guys, check out the playlist, like and subscribe, and remember, the threshold